Let me start here. The last episode, we talked about something a lot of women don't want to admit. You can be successful, driven, and accomplished, and yet still feel completely off when it comes to your relationships. It's not because something is wrong with you. It's absolutely not that, but because no one ever taught you how to operate with emotional structure. You remember I said something that may have stuck with you along the lines of you have structure professionally, but not emotionally. Now, today, we're not going to get into trying to fix any of that. Not yet. But we're going to do something that's a little more important, which is I want to start opening your eyes to seeing clearly what's happening. And to start that conversation off this evening, I want to read to you a section from my book, Empowerment Catalysts for Transforming Relationships. And it goes, owning your power begins with self awareness, the foundation upon which empowerment is built. Now, most people hear that, but they don't actually know what it looks like in real life. So, what does self awareness really look like? Let's simplify it. Self awareness isn't overthinking, talking it out with your friends, replacing conversations, excuse me, replaying conversations over and over and over in your head. But what self awareness looks like is catching yourself while you're in the pattern, not after, not when everything's over, but while it's actually happening. Have you ever taken a step back when you're in the middle of something, a heated conversation, and just you're right in the middle of it? So the real issue is something I see all the time. You don't miss the red flags. Um, I mean, we feel these feelings in the moment. We know when something feels off, but instead of stopping it, we have the tendency to try to explain things away. You know what I'm talking about. You hear the terms, you give it some time for things to pass by. You start adjusting your behavior to accommodate that other partner's activities and the way they carry themselves. And it's right there that you find yourself in the pattern situation. I mean, you meet someone, everything starts off really good. They're consistent. Both of you are intentional and all the effort is there. You're making the phone calls, you're dropping the little notes, you're picking each other up, you're doing favors, errands with each other. And then slowly over a period of time, you start noticing that change in communication. The effort that was there in the beginning starts dropping off, right? And then as that starts dropping off, so does the energy. And it starts shifting. And you start finding yourself being the one that's carrying the entire energy for the relationship. You ever felt that before? But instead of saying something's off, are you finding yourself saying, well, maybe he's just busy, or let me not overreact. It may not be what I think it may be. Or what about even, let me give it a little more time. Maybe things will work itself out, or whatever's bothering him, he'll get over it. When you find yourself in that position, you're no longer observing, but now you have become part of the pattern. You've actually enrolled yourself in the pattern that you are finding that is not making you happy. So This is an opportunity. Instead of asking yourself, why is he doing this to me? Take a step back and ask yourself this question. Why am I allowing this? And it's not about blaming yourself for what's happening in your relationship, but it's about taking your power back. Because the minute that you understand the role that you have played to reach this point in the relationship, you actually gain control over your decisions. The framework that I introduced is called STAND. And the first element of the framework is S, meaning self awareness. Before we do anything, before we can accomplish anything, we must know who we are. We may know who you are in your business profession environment. We see you leading the teams, delivering the messages, holding the meetings, and establishing the plan forward. However, are you bringing those same standards into your personal relationships? Self awareness. It isn't something that is a permanent state. A lot of the times, it may be something that you've heard over the years, a perspective that someone may see you in because they seen you at work. They think that you're this way. Or whenever you have conversations with those people, they see you this way based on your level of conversation. And they see how you perform in your professional environment, but may not understand your personal. And that goes for ourselves. A lot of times you may say, yeah, I'm this type of person or I'm this type of person. But when it comes to holding a standard, a level of standard that you hold professionally, are you bringing that same level of effort in your personal relationship? It may be partially, it may be a little more than half, but is it 100%? So as we start working with the first element of self awareness, we're not going to go through all five of the elements today. I just want to start with the first one because we're going to go through all five over the next few weeks and giving you some conversation about that that will help you pivot and start to influence your relationships in a different way. So, under the element of self awareness, here's some actions that you can take following listening to this podcast. Number one is just spotting it. So it's not about, you writing things down and overthinking. The easiest action to take right now is to think about your last frustrating interaction with that person you care about, you're in a relationship with, and ask yourself, what did I notice early that I actually ignored? That's it. What did I notice early and yet I ignored it? I don't want you to try to explain it. It's not about trying to explain it. It's not about trying to figure it all out. It's simply about asking yourself the question and realizing what happened so it becomes clear that it has happened. And the second action you can take following that step is think of the one standard that if it were missing, you would not continue that relationship. And that's what we spoke on the subject of standards. So it's just a matter of picking one. You determine what that is, but just a couple to think of: consistency, effort, communication. What standard means enough to you that if that person you're in a relationship refuses to acknowledge it, you would no longer continue that relationship. It's not about negotiating with yourself, and it's not about negotiating with them when it comes to that standard. It's not about you explaining the standard to them or trying to explain yourself out of why it means something to you and why that person's overstepping that boundary. Just make the decision. And that can be the most hardest decision that you have to make when it comes to a relationship because that goes both professionally as well as personally in your personal relationships. But determine what that standard is that is non-negotiable for you and be willing to take the step to step away so that you can stand tall for something that you believe in. The third action to take and just try it. The next time something feels off, take a step back. Don't react. Don't try to fix it. And absolutely do not try to explain why something happened or why you feel a certain way. Just take a pause, observe the behavior, because when you take that one step back without reacting, that is where you just push your power button because you're no longer responding to an action. You've actually empowered yourself to make a decision. So think about that when you're in a relationship or you come across something in the upcoming coming weeks or maybe over this weekend. Something just doesn't feel right. Don't react. Take a step back and just think about it. What response does it deserve? Now, we're not trying to fix everything in one day because that's absolutely impossible. This is actually a journey of rebuilding. And more so than that, I would look at it as a renewing of your mind of how you see yourself and who you are and what exactly do you stand for and what are your standards that you're not willing to negotiate on, both professionally as well as in your personal relationships. So we're not changing your entire dating life overnight. That's not what this conversation is about. But we're doing something that's a little bit more important, which is we're slowing things down so that you can actually see what's been happening in your life, in your relationships with people that you say you care for and that they say they care for you. Because once you see where you stand and you see it clearly, you can't go back to operating the way that you've been operating. So, in short, once you see something, you can't unsee it. It is what it is. And at that point, being the astute business woman you are, there's a decision that has to be made. And you have to be willing to stand on that decision. So, as far as self awareness goes, that's the moment that you kind of say to yourself, I don't understand why this keeps happening. And you pivot and you start saying to yourself, I see exactly what I've been allowing, and I'm not going to stand for it. So if this conversation this evening hit you, don't overthink it. Listen to it a couple of times if it's something you may have missed. But just take one moment this evening, today, over the weekend, and be honest about what you've been seeing in your relationships that you've actually been ignoring. And if you're ready to go deeper, stay with me. Share this podcast with your friends, associates who may be in the same situation as you are, or you all have had conversations about it. Share this podcast with them because in the next episode, we're going to take it a little bit further. We're going to take that awareness to the point of an in the face of truth, which most people avoid. Thank you for listening. I'm your host of No More Small Talk, Coach Rod Johnson, and I'll see you next week.